November wasn't a great reading month, now that I think about it. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and for today's video we are going to be doing my November wrap-up. So much like October, I think in October I read 4 books, and again in November I only read 4 books. Halfway through November I just kind of stopped reading. I got stressed out with school, and then it was Thanksgiving and all of my friends were home and I just wanted to hang out with them, and then before I knew it, it was November 30th and then it was December and I hadn't read anything else for half the month. So not my best reading month, but it's fine. I'm not completely mad at myself. I just have to play catch up hardcore in December and read 10 books. So we'll see if I can make it happen. We're gonna talk about the books that I did read in November. Like I said, I only read 4. 2 of them were audiobooks. One of them was a graphic novel and the other one was a novel, but it was like told in texts and emails. So I'm not very impressed with myself. The first book that I'm going to talk about is one that I listened to on audiobook, and that was Semiosis by Sue Burke. And when I talked about this in my reading vlog where I finished it, my sister-in-law so kindly commented that I said one thing and then completely contradicted myself, so I need to clear it up. I didn't even notice when I was editing either, like, don't know how. But Semiosis by Sue Burke, this is a book where 50 people are sent to a new planet to colonize because Earth is like dying and it's uninhabitable. And so they are sent to this new planet and they have to set up a colony and figure everything out, and the plants on this planet are sentient, and so they are just kind of figuring out a way to live with these plants in harmony because, like, similar to Earth, they're their own species, but it's like if there was another, they're essentially like aliens. Even though the humans are aliens, I'm not explaining this well. You get it. The plants are sentient. And so they're like, at first they're really tripped out because they're like, plants are not sentient. Like, these plants are not mad at us. That's not a thing. They don't have emotions. And then the plants start acting up and they're like, oh, they are mad at us. Whoopsie. And the way that this book is told, it's told in like generations, and so you get one generation and then the second chapter is the next generation, and so you might have characters from the previous generation and you might follow them, but they will most likely die within that one and you'll have to follow a bunch of new characters. And I've been sitting on this for a little while, especially because that comment has not left my head. I was like, how was I so wishy-washy? So I have decided on 3 stars, definitely. What I really, really loved about this book was the world itself. I thought that Sue Burke, the author, did an incredible job of creating an entire planet and just thinking outside of the box, like, so creatively, because that's not something I ever would have considered. Like, plants are sentient. We'll see what that's like. Like, that's not something I would have ever come up with. So the world building and all of that was incredible, and I was blown away, and at parts really creeped out because I was like, what if this is like a possible reality, and like this is something that people in the future or even like my generation has to deal with? Like, that is scary. I am not mentally prepared for that. I don't think I can handle it. So that was a little creepy and trippy to think about. As far as like the characters and the plot of the book, there wasn't much of a plot. It was just people surviving, and so if you like survival stories, you would probably really enjoy this. I'm not crazy about them. This one wasn't bad, but as far as the characters went, since it went generation by generation, which I think was a good way to do this because, you know, realistically, you're not going to figure everything out in a generation. However, with the audiobook, you got an hour with each generation, and so that wasn't a ton of time to get to know the characters, and so I didn't really feel very connected. There were a couple that I really cared for, but other than that, I didn't. I don't know, it was realistic, but I didn't love it. I wasn't crazy about it, and it was honestly kind of a struggle to listen to just because it was so almost dense in a way. So, 3 stars. It wasn't horrible, but it definitely wasn't my favorite. It did make me think, though, which I appreciated. I'm not sure yet if I want to listen to the sequel or not. The other audiobook that I listened to in the month of November was Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. I don't remember what I gave this. I think I gave it like 2.75 out of 5 stars, which is not good. Christina Lauren is one of my favorite author duos for adult romance contemporary books, and I was highly anticipating this book because it sounded very similar to their other book, Love in Other Words, which is my favorite book by them. So I was like, yes, this I should love, which I think is what makes the rating so low, is the fact that I already didn't enjoy the book, but then on top of it I had incredibly high expectations, and it just, this was one of the most disappointing books that I've read this year, and I'm so sad. This book is about a girl, her name is Tate, and she has a famous father, but he's like estranged. She doesn't talk to him, and so her mom and her grandma who raise her make her keep that part of her life very private and don't tell anyone who she is. They go so far as to change her last name so that like people don't recognize her and she can kind of have a normal life and doesn't grow up in the life of paparazzi and tabloids and everything like that. And so I think it's for her graduation gift kind of thing. Her and her grandma go to England for a little bit, and there she meets this boy named Sam, and she opens up to Sam about who she really is, because on this trip her and Sam become really close. They're staying in the same hotel and they have breakfast together and meals together with their grandparents every morning, and they do things together over this like 2-week trip or something like that. And so they become really close. She falls in love with him and she decides to tell him who she really is and like her whole life story essentially. And Sam ends up doing something completely unforgivable, and so Tate and Sam never talk again. And then 14 years later, Tate is this big movie star and her and Sam run into each other again, and it's kind of them rekindling everything, rehashing everything. Can she forgive him for what happened so long ago when they were teenagers? Is that something that they can get past? And I was hoping to love this book. Something that I was expecting, that I don't know why I was expecting it, because I don't know why they would do this again. I was expecting the story to be told the same way that Love in Other Words was, in that it would go back and forth between timelines. It didn't. It was just one chronological timeline. So that is just like a minor thing. My problems with this book were that I found it completely predictable, and all of the things that were supposed to be like shocking or big surprises, I guessed way ahead of time. And I also didn't really like the characters that much, and I found it really boring. I didn't even want to listen to it, which is not really something that I've ever experienced with a Christina Lauren book. So I was severely disappointed and let down with this book. 2.75 out of 5 stars. I think I also went on a huge rant about something in that vlog, so I'll try and link it down below, but I have put this book out of my mind. I don't even remember what I got so fired up about, aside from the fact that like it was predictable and the ending was bad. The first book that I actually read in the month of November was I Hate Everyone But You by Gabby Dunn and Allison Roskin, who are people with YouTube channels. I kept saying that they're booktubers, but I don't actually know if they're booktubers, but they do have YouTube channels, and this is about these 2 girls who are best friends, and they go to college on opposite sides of the country, and they're trying to maintain their friendship through emails and texts alone because they can't really see each other. And it's about all of their college experiences, and they're very different people, and so they're trying to like navigate, like they're different, but when they're together in person, like they can find a balance, but can they find that same balance when they're not actually together? Because sometimes the characters are not making choices that the other characters would agree with, and they're not there to talk them out of it, and so it's just, I don't know, I thought it was I thought it was pretty realistic, and something that I did really appreciate about this book was like the banter and everything. I felt like, again, it was realistic, and it reminded me a lot of the way that my best friend and I talk, especially because she has moved away, and so there were aspects of this book that I really, really related to, and it made me smile. I read this book in like 2 days, I think. Something that I didn't love about this book was the fact that, yes, they're in constant communication, so obviously the communication is the only thing that you're really seeing in this book. You're not getting their thoughts, except for what they're saying to each other. But when problems came up, they didn't really talk about the problems. They just kind of ignored them and were like, okay, like, we'll forget about this. And so that was frustrating to read, because that's not the way that I handle conflict. So I think I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I am really excited to read the sequel, which I think is Please Send Help. Yes, 4 out of 5 stars. Very easy to read, very quick read. It wasn't like anything mind-blowing, and it was also mildly frustrating at points, but it wasn't a bad book, and it was definitely very enjoyable. So the last book was so underwhelming, I barely, like, I remember it, and that is The Backstagers, Rebel Without Applause, Volume 1 by James Tynion IV, Rhian Sig, and Walter Baiamonte. This is like a magical realism book, I would say, about a kid who goes to an all-boys school, and he is very, like, introverted and shy and just like scared to make friends, and so he goes to join the theater club, and instead of joining the theater club, because all of those people seem to be really snobby and uninviting and unwelcoming, he joins the like backstage crew, and backstage there is this whole other world that is to be discovered with all of these mythical creatures, and it's ever changing, and it was funny and it was cute, but like I didn't want to pick it up. I didn't really want to read it, so it wasn't great. I think I gave this like 3 out of 5 stars. The romance was cute, but it wasn't something that I was like crazy about. The friendships, again, same thing. The world, same thing. The plot, same thing. It was all just kind of for me. It was like wholesome, but also I didn't care. I think I gave this a 3 stars just because it was like not a bad book, but it wasn't like a good book, if that makes sense. Maybe I gave it a 2.5. I really don't know. That's it. I managed to talk a lot for only having read 4 books, but those are all the books that I read in November. I hope that you had a better reading month, at least quality-wise, than I did in November. I'm hoping that December will be a better month, but we will see. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys are all doing well reading, mentally and otherwise, and I really hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys!